oscuridad.
Group D, Free versus Fantasy. And so far, my predictions in this group have just been spot on. Forget about the other groups. This group right here, my predictions have been spot on. Oh man, Free has won, Stork has won. So Fantasy, you better be quaking in your boots. Nuke the Oracle's predictions. I'm like Paul the Octopus, Paul the Oracle Octopus, predicting the World Cup games. I am so much like an octopus. I stick to surfaces. I actually blend in with my surroundings right now. My pants match the couch I'm sitting on. So I am just like an octopus. Okay, I forget what I was talking about. Okay, Free. Let's talk about Free. He is a Royal Rotor candidate, which is bizarre. I've discussed that before just because he's done so well in MSL. But if he wins this OSL, he will have won his first OSL from the round of 36. And I've encountered a couple of Royal Rotor candidates before. I'd say Free is one of the best chances I've ever seen as far as Royal Roading goes. Say that 5 times fast. Let's go beyond Grand Line SC. Except down at the 5 o'clock position in yellow is Free. I'm free and pretty. Yeah, and that's what he's saying right now. He whispered it to himself. I'm pretty. So down at the 8 o'clock position in red is Fantasy. Fantasy, this should be his best matchup right now, but he already lost a game against Stork. Of course, that is Stork's best matchup versus Terran, so I guess he shouldn't feel too bad about that. Plus, Stork has had a very nice strategy going for 2 base carriers on Dreamliner. He knew that would work even if it was scouted. And luckily for him, Fantasy played it risky anyway, waited to get Goliath until he had a big ground army out, because he wanted to get that... He wanted to stomp the natural expansion from Stork, take that down, and have enough Goliaths later to take down the carriers. But I don't think he had encountered carriers on that map before. It kind of threw him off his game, because he didn't quite know what to do with his Goliaths, whether to keep them inside of his main or move out with them at the same time. He was constantly running back and forth, and that kind of minimized the damage he could have done. Not to mention Stork expanded at an island expansion, which I don't think he anticipated that at all. So his game sense seems to be a little bit off in this OSL so far. Let's see if Free can get a similar wacky build done on this map, Grand Line SC. Like I said, I've encountered a couple of Royal Rotor candidates before, including Fantasy. I commentated on Fantasy's first OSL. I'm 12, and what is this? They don't look 12. Whatever. So Fantasy, I commentated on his first OSL when he was a Royal Rotor candidate. And I'll be the first one to tell you, everyone could tell you about this. No one thought Fantasy was going to win that OSL. And he didn't. He came close. He came 1 game away. But still, it felt kind of fluky. His 2 wins against Stork, it's just his whole road getting there. It didn't feel like he really deserved that win. It wasn't until his final against Jaedong where everyone's eyes kind of popped open and said, wow, he almost took the OSL finals away from Jaedong. Even though he lost, that was just such an impressive couple of wins he was able to garner in that OSL. So that's basically when he deserved the OSL finals, even though he didn't get it. But yes, he wasn't a very convincing Royal Rotor candidate, and Hero was another one. It's like, is Hero going to make it out? Nah, probably not. He does have 500 APM, but he's not doing too well for STX these days. I think he already hit his prime, which kind of sad. He did get to the semifinals, though, so go Hero. But Free, I think that was a 12 Nexus from him. That Nexus is going to pop up pretty early, so I think this is definitely an econ build from him. As alright, Fantasy does have a complete wall off into his main. Let's get some predictions here. as Fantasy looks like he's scouting up the 10 o'clock position with that SCV, kind of staying down here a long time. What is Fantasy going to do? I think Fantasy might expand at the 10 o'clock. He's still hovering up there with his SCV. Oh boy, is he going to put down his second base at the 10 o'clock? This would be so risky from him. But all right, let's get some predictions before things heat up, because things could get really exciting soon. If Fantasy does expand up there, which he's doing, he's throwing down his second base up to 10 o'clock. Wacky. So Free is just going to hover back and forth with his probe, looking to see that second base. Once he doesn't see it, he might get a little bit suspicious, though. Let's get those predictions out of the way before this game gets really exciting. There's one from I Hate Sign Up 1, writes, I don't like Fantasy as a player, but I think he can take down Free. And then he pounded randomly on the keyboard. BBQ, WTF, ASD, in parentheses, read that, Nuke, whatever. Here's another one from Blackest Moon, writes, the Vulture Terrorist will haunt your dreams. So, all right, Free is getting suspicious, going through the middle of the map looking for proxies. He is anticipating proxies right now. He's saying Fantasy has to have something else out there. He's not throwing down his second base yet. He saw that with the probe, so he's thinking, the timing's a little off. There's got to be something out here. I just got to find it. Going up to the 2 o'clock position, looking at the 2 o'clock natural, doesn't see anything there. Actually pulling away. So if he goes towards the 10 o'clock natural, pulls away from there. Oh, man. Chaos. This is going to be a wacky game no matter what happens. But Free does have a Dragoon at the natural expansion, a couple of Dragoons, so he's going to be fine as far as that Vulture goes. And is the probe going to find this base? If he does find the base, this could be over for Fantasy. This is quite a gamble from Fantasy, especially considering he wasn't able to fend off that probe from his natural long enough for Free to... Free looking at the 12 o'clock, doesn't see the base there, so he's moving on. Okay, there is a Vulture in that could intercept this probe, but the Vulture, no. Vulture sneaking by, not seeing the probe, so okay, Free on his way to the 11 o'clock base. Doesn't see anything there. Actually puts down a pylon at that position, curiously enough. And he is going straight towards the 10 o'clock. And I think he's finally going to find this base. Let's see if he pulls away at the very last moment. Free going up to the base. He is going to see this base at the 10 o'clock. Sees all the SCVs mining. And look at the look on his face. He's like, yes. I know where your base is now, Fantasy. And if ever a base was in no man's land, this base is so vulnerable right now, it's not even funny. So Fantasy actually stopped his SCV production up there. It looks like he might abandon that effort soon, because he knows that Free's just going to send all of his units to that position, and he's not going to have any way of dealing with it, especially considering he's throwing down his third base right now at his natural expansion. But yeah, floating off the 10 o'clock base. Let's see where he goes with the 10 o'clock base. Can't go there because of the pylon in position. But Free, he knew exactly where Fantasy was going to be. Since he scouted the 2 o'clock, he's saying, yep, he's over at the 10 o'clock. He's doing something fishy and stupid. So I'll put a pylon up there just to annoy him. So Fantasy is going to float over. Let's see if these Dragoons can intercept this command center in time. Since Fantasy doesn't really have any units to escort the command center, he's just floating that over. If Free can get that command center into the red, it would help him out a lot, because it's going to take a while for that command center to get back home. Let's see if the Dragoons can find the command center. Looks like Free is looking for troops, actually, going in first with a Zealot, just to make sure there's no extra troops up there that could attack his Dragoons. Attacking the command center a little bit, but he decides to pull away. He knows he's not going to be able to get that command center in red. So Fantasy most likely going to float that home, since he's kind of aiming it towards the 9 o'clock expansion, but that has a mineral that you have to mine before you can throw down a base there. And he doesn't have a starport yet, doesn't have dropships, so he can't really do that. So probably going to fly home and land that command center, try to get some extra SCVs there until he can fly over to the 9 o'clock, or maybe float it down to the other natural expansion. There are a couple of natural expansions at each of the bases, so he might float that over to the 7 o'clock base. Take that instead, which is looking likely like he'll do. He's floating that right back down at an angle, so I think he is going to try to take the 7 o'clock base. It's going to be pretty late, considering that Free does have a pretty huge army out in the ground now. He was able to make Fantasy lift that, putting Fantasy significantly behind. But Fantasy, once he gets that third base running, he's not going to be that far behind. Free throwing down his third base now. But Free is actually in a much better position, since he'll be able to take his fourth base soon enough, quickly after his third, and Fantasy won't be able to do much about it besides Vulture harass. Maybe try to pick off that probe going to trying to put down the fourth base soon. But Free is pushing the front a bit. He's going to have to back off soon. There's plenty of siege tanks, and he sees that with his observer, so he's going to know to back off. He does back off. He'll need some more zealots before he pushes into a tank troop that large, not to mention all the mines around, could do significant damage. Terrible, terrible damage to those dragoons. Yes, that was kind of a StarCraft 2 reference. Just got done playing StarCraft 2, finished the campaign, and there's actually a character who says, "We're taking terrible, terrible damage." Oh, that's such a nice little in-joke. But alright, nice block there from Free. He does have a complete pylon block of his natural expansion, and he's protecting that very well with his dragoons. So he's going to be comfortably mining from all of his bases now. And he does have the pylon wall at his third base as well, so... Okay, the probe not being found by the Vulture. Oh, that Vulture could have totally taken down that probe. But Fantasy deciding to put a mine up there instead. Hey, I'll put a mine. Now the Vulture's going to say, what? Oh, crap.